If anyone ever told you making travel films is glamorous and easy, then they've clearly never spent a day in pre-production.
Welcome back to another video, the first of 2020. I know we're in February, but I've been deep into pre-production on a couple of projects, and that's what this whole video is about today. The truth behind pre-production. Because to me, pre-production is one of the most boring parts of any production.
Yeah.
But it's also the most essential, and no one told me any of it. I had to learn it on the job. So I'm making this video so you guys don't have to go through the pain that I went through. There's a lot that we need to go into, so I'm gonna dive into that today. I'm gonna break down why it's important, what you should be looking out for. And until a few months ago, I didn't think being a filmmaker meant I had to look at Excel spreadsheets. Boy, was I wrong. I still hate them, but you need those spreadsheets, and I'm gonna tell you why. Pre-production is not that glamorous. It's not that fun, it's a lot of logistics. So the first thing that you need is to have a vision, to have a strong, clear idea of the video that you want to make, because that's gonna shape up how you build out your crew, the logistics, how you manage the budget and your time. And if you're on a smaller production like the ones I work on, I am the dude who's in charge. I'm the one making the decisions on kind of everything. So I have to know my story and what I want to tell, because the buck stops with me. If you're gonna take away just one thing from this video, you have to be an organized person. If you're not organized, you shouldn't be in pre-production. It just ain't gonna work. So the first thing I do is I build out a schedule, a timeline of how long everything is gonna take. You need to have all those things clearly laid out, and you need to know how many people are involved in each stage of the process, because that is then going to affect your budget that you have to spend. And managing budgets is probably the most important part of a production. So you need to manage your budgets accordingly and be on top of everything. And that's where today's sponsor comes in, which is Starling Bank. I opened a Starling account last year for this exact reason, for productions. I was working on a production that was in euros, and I'm here in the UK with a British account. And I realized if the budget is in euros and I'm in pounds, the exchange rate is we're gonna basically be losing money in the exchange rate. I don't know exactly how it all works, but I knew that that wasn't good. So I was looking around, and it was a Sunday, right? It was a Sunday evening. And obviously I had a couple of questions because I'm opening a bank account. This isn't something that I thought I could do in a couple of minutes, although I literally had a couple of hours until I was being paid for this production, and I had to give them a bank account. So I went onto their website, and they have a 24/7 customer helpline, which told me everything I needed before I set up my account. So I downloaded the app, opened up a UK account, that got approved within an hour, and then I was able to open a euros account, which I could then send over to the client so they could pay me in euros. And that's just one of the many benefits of using Starling. I can use it abroad, I can use it in multiple countries. So when I'm in Singapore, I can be paying on my Starling account, and it comes out of pounds, and it instantly shows me a notification, the exchange rate, how much I paid in pounds, and in that case, Singapore dollars, which is perfect for when I am also the producer on a shoot, because I'm so focused on actually making that video. But if I'm having to do both roles and I just get the notifications on my phone, or at the end of the day, I can just open the app and see how much I've spent in that location, that really helps. And having a card that works abroad is incredible. I don't need to ring anybody up beforehand. I can just go to that country and it instantly works. Like, that is just the peace of mind of that when you're dealing with these budgets on productions. It's just great. It's there. It's a euro account and a pound account. Yeah, it's really great and helpful, and I really appreciate them sponsoring this video. So if you're in a similar situation and you're looking for an account to use abroad, or you need euros, or you need instant access to your account and seeing what you're spending, then you can click the first link in the description and download the Starling app today. And when you're dealing with budgets, like I mentioned up top, you have to be a G at spreadsheets. Yes, you spend a lot of time looking at spreadsheets. You have to keep a track of everything you're spending, every email you have. I always thought that it was just like, oh, I don't need this. I'm a creative, I make films. But no, you need those spreadsheets, because if you don't have them and you get back from your production, you haven't monitored your spending, then you're kind of screwed. A lot of what you're doing in pre-production is setting up so your production runs smoothly. So the way I manage my spreadsheets is in Google Drive. Every video I go on, I have a folder on Google Drive, and that's broken down into different categories. I'm very meticulous when it comes to spreadsheets, and you have to have a very meticulous mindset in pre-production, I think. Definitely a skill that I've had to pick up, but I like all my folders to be very organized. I can have separate folders for transportation, accommodation, permits, all those things I might need when I'm out on the shoot, I put into separate folders so I can easily access them. And as a backup, I'll also flag the emails, so if something happens or I can't, for some reason, access that folder, I can also check my emails. To-do lists and reminders are your best friend. I currently am just using the Apple Notes as like a to-do list. I tick them off as I go along. I have a huge sheet and I like that button. I can just click and it marks it as done. I think that's great. And then Apple reminders. If I remember something, I write it down straight away and I set a time that I think I need to do it by so it reminds me. And that's just to give me a little bit more headspace so I don't have to worry about that until it pops up. I'm sure there's a bunch of other reminder apps and to-do lists out there, but recently I've just found that they work the best because they link up with my Mac and my iPhone. I've also used Trello before, people I know who use Asana, but I quite like the simplicity of just like a to-do list on my notes and like Apple reminders and my calendar. It just kind of all links together, right? Find what works best for you and fits into your daily routine. So when you're working on something like this, or maybe a shoot that's a week long or 2 weeks long, there is a lot of logistics to sort out. This is where you jump back to your schedule of how many days you're shooting for, what locations are you shooting in, because you need to organize things like accommodation. Where are you staying? Have you got the allocated budget for the amount of nights? Have you got the right amount of beds if you're taking a team with you? Transportation, how are you getting to that country or that city? And once you're there, are you hiring a car? If you're hiring a car, do you have full insurance? Are you covered fully on everything? Because if you bump into a tree or you break down, you want to have those things covered. You don't want to be paying access and extra money on top. So trying to sort that out is also great. So you've got to think about those things, as well as locations, licenses, and permits. This is going to sound really boring, but if you're working for a client, you're going to need permission for places you shoot. Shooting a car commercial or, I don't know, a watch commercial, anything in a location, you need to know if you have the right permits to film in that place. So you need to find the film board in that city, email them, fill out lots of documentations and make sure you have all the right permits. The same goes for flying a drone. Flying a drone commercially, you need to have a license. If you don't have a license, you need to find someone who can fly that drone for you that you can pay. See what I'm getting at? There's like all these things you have to overcome. And it's really funny because a year ago, I was the dude who was just like, nah, we'll just do it and we'll get the drone up and get the footage. But you then might not be able to use that footage. And if you can't use that footage, then you've wasted your opportunity. You've got to make sure you're covered for all of those scenarios, because a client who is paying you a lot of money and they want that drone shot and you didn't get that license, well, you're kind of screwed if you didn't sort that out. Because yeah, you just can't use it and then they're not happy. So you just gotta remember if those things are important to your production beforehand. Just think of everything that might possibly go wrong and try to be ready for that to happen. Like, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Is that what they say? Hope for the best. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Obviously, sometimes things do go wrong, but if you can set it up in the best way possible, that you're covered, then you're fine. The last trip I just took in Hawaii, there was so much pre-prep, and overall, it was a fantastic shoot. It went so well, but on the first day, we left the hard case on the plane. We left a hard case full of lenses, cameras, and drones on a plane. Luckily, we managed to find a flight attendant and she went back on the plane and got it for us. So that was all good. That's like human error, right? Those things happen. I don't normally travel with a hard case, so it's not something I necessarily think I'm gonna get off the plane. Should have, because it was a lot of gear, but I didn't. Nothing else went wrong because I prepped for the worst and we got the best. And the reason I got the best on that is because I also built up a team around me that I could trust. And this is a big skill that I think I've learned, building up a team around you who you can fully trust and you're committed to and you know will be able to help you. And for me, having a producer is so key to any project. I first learned this when I was in Bangladesh with Yusuf from #OurStories. We made the video with the Rohingya refugees, but we had to get down to Cox's Bazar and we had no way of getting there. And a local teacher sent one of his students down as like our producer, our fixer. And we wouldn't have got through without him. He secured us accommodation, travel to the refugee camp, security in there, everything we needed. He made sure we ate on time because we looked like we were getting hungry and he knew we needed our energy to keep up our lines and to deliver the talks that we were giving. So having someone on board who is a local to where you're going is also a big benefit. So ever since then, I have loved having a producer on board. So finding the right person is so important. There's a few ways I go about that. The first is I will go off recommendations from people I know and I already trust. If someone recommends me Mark, Joe, I don't know who these people are, I'm making them up right now, but if Joe says to me, oh, Mark is a great producer, he lives in Paris, you're shooting in Paris, you should really talk to Joe. Wait, Mark or Joe? I can't remember, I'm talking to the person from Paris because they know what they're doing. I'm so lost, I should have used real names. But the point is, they've recommended the producer in Paris, so I'm already buying into it because I trust that person's opinion. So I'll then jump on a call with them. I call it kind of like onboarding. I have a list of questions ready that I want to ask them. You can normally tell within the first few minutes of how confident they are in what they do, if they're a good fit. And then third of all, I'd say just go with your gut. I've learned a lot to trust my gut, and especially if you're onboarding a producer, they're going to be a big part of pre-production. They're going to help you with a lot of these logistics on the ground in perhaps that country or city that you're not so familiar with. They can answer the questions or connect you to the right people that you want. They can also set up interviews and perhaps events that you want to cover. It's got to be the right person. So you have to trust your team around you. And that goes for if you bring on cinematographers, drone pilots. And then we're moving into the kind of creative part of pre-production. I feel like it's the only creative part there is. And that's scripting and shortlisting. I am by no means a good writer. In fact, I can barely spell most words. I screw up every time. Part of the dyslexic club. But having a script really helps me build out my videos. And most of the time it's just me looking at it, so I don't really care how it is. It's a lot of notes that I can just look at and understand. Here's an example of my Singapore script, and in other circumstances, perhaps you need a shot list to go along with your storyboards that a client wants to see. Here's an example of a quick shot list I made. It can come in many forms. I like to use Google Docs a lot, again, so I can have it on my phone if I need it. But don't force a lot of scripts. If I'm in the mood for it, sometimes they'll come within an hour, sometimes they'll take a couple of days. Sometimes I don't write the conclusion until I'm out on that trip because I want to experience what's happening, and I write the conclusion based around what I've learned, if that kind of makes sense. So my script is kind of like the bare bones of the story, and I adapt and add stuff to it as and when I want. So it's very fluid, but what I found that I struggled with a lot in January is jumping from managing logistics and spreadsheets into a script and trying to be creative and trying to think about the story. I found it hard switching gears. So I had to try and really allocate time. Like I was like, okay, today it's just gonna be a creative day. I'm just gonna be doing scripts. Finding the balance between the both, it's kind of hard. And then really you're kind of into your final preps. It's great if you have a team on board to bring everyone up to date, have a production document, links to relevant documents like your script or your shot list, everyone's contact information, links to permits. I usually make a Google folder accessible to everybody on the team. So if I'm with a local producer, he can also open film permits, or he can look at the itinerary or amend it if something happens. But then this is also very important, very, very important. You have to do all this prep and be totally ready for these things to just go completely backwards and wrong. You want to hope for the best, but prep for the worst. But if something's not going right on production, you have to be ready to adapt and to move. I've known from so many shoots never go according to plan. If you've scheduled every hour of your production, this interview is going to be 20 minutes long. It's probably going to be 40 minutes long. So you want to be as prepared as you can, but also be ready to pivot and adapt where you need to. And I think that's about it. This is by no means the correct way of doing it. This is just how I've learned from doing it freelance myself. I've never been taught how to do it properly. It's just what works for me, but I would love to hear your opinions. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, all those things, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and have a great day, week, month, whatever it is you're up to. Okay. I've just seen a really big spider web hanging above my sofa. I hate spiders. Did anyone know this? I hate them. Oh, I'm gonna have to get rid of that. Okay, bye.